He had everything the world could offer: mansions, private jets, a fortune that could feed generations. Yet one night, the billionaire walked away from it all, choosing to live on the streets with nothing but the clothes on his back. He thought he would teach the homeless what resilience meant. But when a poor black boy crossed his path, the billionaire realized he had stepped into the greatest lesson of his life, one that money could never buy. Nathaniel Cross was a name that carried weight in every boardroom, every glossy magazine, and every charity gala across the United States. He was the billionaire who built an empire from scratch, the man whose face adorned Forbes covers and whose decisions swayed markets. He had everything people dreamed of: wealth that spilled over generations, a private jet at his command, a penthouse that overlooked the Manhattan skyline, and invitations to exclusive circles where the world's richest gathered. Yet, despite all this, Nathaniel felt hollow. Nights in his mansion felt colder than winter alleys, conversations at parties felt emptier than abandoned buildings, and the smiles of those around him seemed tied to his bank account. One evening, after another tiresome charity dinner where people applauded his donations yet never saw his heart, Nathaniel stood in front of his marble mirror and whispered, "What is all this for?" That single question echoed in his mind for weeks, shaking him awake from the illusion that money could fill the loneliness clawing at his soul. And so, one night under the city lights, without telling anyone, without preparing statements or press releases, Nathaniel walked away from everything. He put on an old hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, left his phone and cards behind, and walked into the night with nothing but $20 in his pocket. He wanted to know what life felt like on the other side, the side where people fought for food, where survival wasn't guaranteed, where no one cared about your last stock deal but only about the warmth of the next meal. For the first time in decades, he sat on a sidewalk and leaned against a wall as cars rushed past, and people looked down at him with pity, or worse, disgust. His fortune meant nothing now, he was just another man on the streets. At first, it felt like freedom. He wasn't Mr. Cross the billionaire, he was Nathaniel the nobody. But freedom turned bitter when hunger gnawed at his stomach, when cold winds pierced through his thin hoodie, and when he realized how invisible a person could feel when society decided they were worth nothing. Days blurred into each other. He begged for coins outside subways, he picked half-eaten sandwiches from trash bins, and he learned to guard himself when others fought for scraps. Yet, in all that pain, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: raw life. No assistance, no cameras, no applause, just reality. And it was in that rawness, sitting under a broken streetlight with trembling hands, that Nathaniel's life would collide with someone who would change everything. A boy with nothing but a heart richer than any fortune. It was late evening when Nathaniel first noticed him, a skinny black boy no older than 12, sitting on the corner of 145th Street with a sketchbook balanced on his knees. His clothes were worn, his shoes had holes, but his eyes held a fire Nathaniel hadn't seen in years. The boy was drawing a city skyline, bold strokes capturing the chaos and beauty of New York as if he owned it in his heart even though the streets owned him. Nathaniel, starving and shivering, hesitated before approaching. "What are you drawing?" he asked, his voice raspy from days without much food. The boy looked up, suspicious at first, then shrugged. "Dreams," he said simply. That one word hit Nathaniel harder than any insult he had heard in boardrooms. Dreams, on the street, in the cold, yet here this boy was, sketching visions of a future brighter than the reality around him. Nathaniel sat beside him, and the boy didn't move away. "You got a name?" Nathaniel asked. "Malik," the boy replied. "You," Nathaniel almost said, Nathaniel Cross, out of habit, but he stopped himself. Instead, he said, "Just Nate." That night, Malik shared half of his stale sandwich with him, even though it was all he had. "Can't let a man starve," Malik said with a grin, like generosity was second nature. Nathaniel had spent millions on charity galas, but the way this boy gave without hesitation, without calculation, pierced him deeper than any ceremony ever had. Over the next few days, Nathaniel and Malik became unlikely companions. Malik showed him where soup kitchens served meals, which alleys were safer to sleep in, and which store owners might give a loaf of bread if you asked kindly. But beyond survival, Malik shared his dreams. "One day, I'll be an architect. I'll build homes so no kid sleeps outside again. My mom, she used to say, 'Malik, the world will try to tell you what you can't be. Don't listen, build anyway.'" Nathaniel listened, each word shaking him. Here was a boy who had nothing, no family, no home, no money, yet spoke with a hope richer than Nathaniel's billion-dollar empire. And Nathaniel, who once thought he came to teach the streets, began to realize he was the one being taught. Days turned into weeks. Nathaniel lived fully as a homeless man, and every day beside Malik chipped away at the illusions he once held about wealth, success, and happiness. He watched how Malik shared what little he had with others, splitting a granola bar between 3 hungry kids, giving his only blanket to a shivering old man, or offering his sketches to strangers just to make them smile. Nathaniel couldn't comprehend it at first. Why give away what you barely have? He asked one evening as they sat near a subway vent for warmth. Malik shrugged and said, "'Cause if I've got something and you've got nothing, then we're both hurting. But if I share, at least one of us smiles." That simple logic cut through Nathaniel's soul like a blade. He thought of his past life, lavish dinners where food worth thousands went to waste, meetings where people argued about profits while ignoring the janitor sweeping the floor, gala speeches about giving back while hoarding millions. Malik, a boy with empty pockets, was living with a generosity that Nathaniel had never touched despite his billions. One cold night, Nathaniel broke down. "Malik, I used to be someone. I had everything. Cars, mansions, companies, people bowed when I walked in the room. But I was empty, and now, I have nothing, yet I feel more alive with you than I ever did in all that wealth." Malik looked at him, eyes wide. "You had all that?" Nathaniel nodded. "Then why'd you leave it?" Silence hung for a while before Nathaniel whispered, "Because I wanted to find out what money couldn't buy." Malik smiled faintly. "Guess you found it then." Nathaniel realized Malik was right. He found friendship, kindness, resilience, and the courage to dream against all odds. He found humanity, raw and unfiltered. Malik was the richest soul he had ever met, richer than any billionaire he'd sat beside. And deep in his heart, Nathaniel knew he couldn't let Malik's dreams die on the corner of 145th Street. One morning, police officers came through, clearing the streets. Nathaniel knew his time of anonymity was running out. Reporters had started sniffing around after weeks of his disappearance, and soon the world would discover the billionaire who vanished into the alleys. He couldn't stay hidden forever. But before returning, he had one last mission. He took Malik by the shoulders and said, "If I told you your dreams could come true, would you believe me?" Malik laughed bitterly. "I'd want to, but life doesn't work like that for kids like me." Nathaniel's eyes softened. "It does, and it will." Days later, the world exploded when news broke. Billionaire Nathaniel Cross was alive. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and headlines screamed about his social experiment of living homeless. But Nathaniel ignored the chaos. His focus was Malik. He met with architects, schools, and foundations. He poured millions into a scholarship fund, with Malik as the first recipient. He built a shelter program that didn't just feed people but taught them skills, gave them jobs, and offered dignity. At the center of it all was Malik's dream, homes for the homeless, designed by those who once had no home. When Nathaniel revealed Malik to the world, people were stunned. A boy from the streets, now standing in front of microphones, sharing his vision of building cities where no child would sleep in the cold. Years later, Malik graduated with honors as an architect, his first project being a housing complex for homeless families funded by Nathaniel's foundation. At the inauguration, Malik stood tall, holding back tears, as Nathaniel whispered, "You taught me what money couldn't. You taught me that real wealth is in giving, in dreaming, in lifting others." The crowd erupted in applause, but for Nathaniel, the true victory was in seeing Malik's smile, the same smile that once lit up a cold street corner, now lighting up the world. He had given up his fortune to be homeless, but what he gained was something even greater, the wealth of humanity, shown to him by a boy with nothing but dreams and a heart big enough to change the world. True wealth isn't measured by the money in your account but by the love, kindness, and dreams you help others build. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more life-changing stories that remind us all, kindness is the greatest fortune.